As I said, my name is Reverend Brianna Iline. I am the Director of Ecumenical Innovation and Justice Initiatives at the Wisconsin Council of Churches. My boss, Carrie Parker, is usually hanging out with y'all, but I will be with you for the spring as she's teaching a course. Um, and tonight we are joined by Bill Hogseth. I have known Bill for a while and have kind of watched him from afar of the work he's been doing up in Northwest Wisconsin, um, really helping getting deep into communities and address community needs, and have always been really impressed. And so I'm delighted that he's joining us tonight to talk about what action can look like on kind of the county level and some of the really incredible work that they are doing up in Northwest Wisconsin. Um, and my hope is that hearing what he's up to can be really inspiring for those of us who maybe aren't there to directly engage in the work to say, like, okay, what can we do here locally? There's a lot going on in our world. I think we just need to turn on the news and realize that something needs to happen, something needs to change, and wondering, I'm hoping tonight that we find some inspiration of what are some things we can do. Um, as always, if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And Matt is going to kind of facilitate a Q&A after Bill gives us a little bit of a presentation. And so, Bill, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Bill. I am in Elk Mound. I'm a sixth generation native of Dunn County, Wisconsin. I was raised by a mom. Both my parents were alcoholics, and my mom was a social worker and counselor, and she taught me the values of empathy and how to sit with people who are in pain. And my dad was an engineer, and he kind of saw the world as in like gears and cogs, and always taught me, don't try to solve a problem unless you know why something's broken. And those two things that my parents gave me, that empathy and that problem solving, is really kind of what I bring as a community organizer to the work I do at GROWW, which stands for GrassRoots Organizing Western Wisconsin. And I'm happy to talk with you guys about that tonight. Before we do, I just would invite anybody who can, just if you could turn on your camera. It's awesome to see people's faces and to engage. If you can't turn on your camera, that's fine too. We just want to invite that connection. And then before I get into what we're up to at GROWW right now, I would just want to check in with you guys. And if you could, maybe anybody who's feeling moved, come off of mute and say one word that describes how you're feeling with your experience in the world as it is right now.
Angry. Angry beyond angry.
Angry beyond angry. What else? Thank you. Connie.
Livid.
Livid. More.
Exhausted.
Exhausted.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah. Overwhelmed.
Scared.
Depressed.
Scared. Laura's scared. Mary Kay, depressed, did you say?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
depressed that this is happening the way it is.
Laura, what's scaring you right now?
Not even sure where to start. Where we're going, wondering how far this will go, and how much it's going to impact our future, as well as our children's and grandchildren's, and all down the line. You know.
And when you say this, how far this will go, what are you talking about?
How far? That's a good question, because by this I kind of mean everything, but I guess what's going on in terms of politics, what's going on in terms of how we're treating other people.
Yeah.
And the feeling that we're not really doing anything yet. And I know we are, but it just doesn't feel like we're making too much progress yet.
Thanks, Laura. How any others? What's a word that describes how you're feeling right now?
Bill, I would go
Disgusted but
with
determined.
Disgusted but determined. And Ahmed?
I would go with sickened.
Yeah. What is sickening you, Ahmed?
The sickening is, you know, I was raised in this country, educated, contributed all my life, and it's like in the last, especially in the last year, we've seen things, everything that, you know, we value as a country, you know, being unraveled.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of feelings right now, and I just wanted to make space for this before we get into what's some of the work that we're doing at GROWW right now, because I think about 6 or 9 months ago, I was really wrestling with, I was organizing a housing campaign in Menominee, Wisconsin, and I was really wrestling with the relevance of trying to pass rental protections ordinances in a time when I could tell that we were facing the rise of authoritarianism in our country. And I was feeling like the moment was too big. I was feeling like my organization was too small, and I was feeling powerless. And I didn't know what to do. But I am a community organizer. So what I started doing was talking to people and asking them what they were feeling, what they were thinking. And I was hearing a lot of the same things that y'all just shared. And I decided that I was going to take a leap. And I talked to my team who I was organizing on housing with, and I said, we just got to see what we can do. We got to just go talk to more and more people and see what's possible. And I'll tell you what that process looked like and what some of the outcomes were. But I just want to share that this work came from a deep sense of being unsettled, being afraid, being overwhelmed by uncertainty, and just trying to find a way through it. And knowing that, like, when you can trust the other people you're working with, and build relationships and stay centered on power, you can get somewhere. So I'm going to share some slides. And just first, I want to share with you just a little bit about GROWW. GROWW stands for Grassroots. By the way, can you guys see this? Can you just thumbs up or say something? Okay. Grassroots Organizing Western Wisconsin. We're a community organizing organization. Our mission is that we build power together to create the change we need for everyone in our communities to make ends meet, live with dignity, and have a voice in shaping the decisions that impact us. And I just want to call out that word power. That is in our mission very intentionally. What we do is that we don't do charity. That's a really good thing for people to do. It's just not what we do. We don't do advocacy. We don't do messaging. We build power by organizing people who can have discipline and strategy and courage around acting together to solve the problems that are most directly impacting them. So power is our compass. We typically organize on, we do organize on very local issues. Like we're trying to, we're taking on some slumlords in one of our towns to get renter protections. We fight big corporate farms. We try to get people elected to local government. And so we really believe in local action. And so that created this tension for us that when there was so much happening federally, how does an organization that is so locally focused, what is it that we can do? So as I was wrestling with this as an organizer, I kind of started looking at the moment we're in politically. And there's a few things that I think are interesting to point out. One thing that's really interesting about the political moment we're in is that we are in a moment of record voter turnout. It's been consistently trending upwards since 1996, but it has not been enough to stop authoritarian drift. There's been an explosion of money in politics, polarization, movements have been weakened, there's gerrymandering, Political parties are disconnected from their base. So the point I'm just trying to make here is that voting is not enough. The other thing that's really interesting about the moment we're in right now is that we have seen more people go to the streets in the last 10 years than any previous decade. 2020 was the largest mobilization of human beings in American history. We've seen it in other parts of the world, like the Arab Spring, where they toppled the dictator, but then it went back to military rule. We saw it here in Wisconsin, 2010, when we turned out 100,000 people to the Capitol, but it wasn't enough to win. The point I'm trying to make here is that mass mobilizations on their own, big protests, are not enough. So it turns out that where a movement focuses its energy and how it focuses its energy matters a great deal. And when you look at people who've studied authoritarianism and how to stop it, one of the patterns that's seen is that when those movements focus on key segments of civil society, like the military or religious institutions or businesses or law enforcement, those am I drawing? Do you guys see that? There's like a red thing on there. Is somebody else drawing that?
I'm not sure if someone else did it or if you did it. I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, weird. I'm just gonna keep going, you guys. So Connor Williams is drawing.
Oh.
I just saw his name.
I just see it. I just saw if I could. I'm not responsible for the red
okay.
one.
All right. Well, we're just gonna go with it. But boy, that was like I've never seen that. Okay. So this idea of pillars of support, where when a nonviolent campaign is very focused on the parts of civil society that give an authoritarian regime its power, they are 4 times as more likely to succeed. So the point is that a movement needs a target, it needs a strategy. It can't just operate on these vague demands of like, let's stop authoritarianism, right? There needs to be a clear plan on how to influence specific institutions. Now it's gone. Interesting. Okay.
That was me. I figured out how to take it off. So
okay, amazing. Okay. This is fun. Okay. So in order to win, the first thing to understand is how does power work? And traditionally people think of power like as a pyramid. You've got power at the top flowing down to the people on bottom, right? Does this feel familiar? But like history actually paints a very different picture, that it's the handful of people at the top. They couldn't get anything done without the consent of the rest of us. So a much more accurate depiction of power is this idea of an upside down triangle that's propped up by pillars of support. And when you look at autocratic power this way, you realize it's not as stable as it seems. So the strategic question then is, how do we drive wedges between the pillars of support, those segments of civil society, like the church, military, business, law enforcement, local governments? How do you drive wedges between those pillars and the autocrat? And if you can go and look at all these other movements, I think the civil rights movement in the United States is a beautiful example of strategic targeting of pillars of support. And you can see how they've built and wielded power in this way. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to, I have more slides, but I want to just take off my slides and just say, is this resonating? Like, how do you feel? Like, what is this? What's coming up for you? Just 1 or 2 people.
We do need defections from the enablers. That's what, right? I mean, that's what I think what you're talking about with wedges, that there's a lot of people enabling what's happening, and we need some of those people to start defecting. Yeah,
right. And when you say defection, I think about like, it's like non-cooperation. Like a power comes from people cooperating with a regime, right? And so how do you create the conditions where non-cooperation can happen? So we were thinking in these lines, and just so you know, we organize in small towns, rural areas in Western Wisconsin, 7 counties. Is anybody up in Western Wisconsin on this call? No? Okay. So we were thinking along these lines, like what can we do in our backyard? And we realized that there's all these pillars of support right here in our backyard. We are in a rural area, which is, when you think about it, it's a demographic that's somewhat of a pillar to this administration because it gets a lot of support from rural areas. So we realized we were kind of in the strategic area to act from if we could get some defections. But we didn't really have an understanding of the landscape. Like, what does our county board administrator think about what's happening federally? Are they aligned with what's happening? Are they quietly uncomfortable with it? Are they conflicted? What do the business leaders think? What do the clergy think? What do the hospital administrators think? What do the mayors think? What does the school superintendents think? We set the goal, and we had 4 teams in different counties. We had teams in 4 different counties who made the goal that we wanted to have 100 meetings in 3 months with all of these local pillars of support. And each county had its own team, and they made lists of the people they wanted to talk to. We did a training on how do you sit down and you find out about what someone's motivations are, what their job is, make sure you're staying focused on that and not debating people. We did not want to go into these meetings trying to persuade. We considered these research meetings where our job was to listen. And so we could come away with a better understanding of who are all these different people on our power map. Does the sheriff support what's happening with ICE? Or is the sheriff conflicted about it? Or is the sheriff neutral about it? Where does the sheriff get their power? All of those questions. So we could create a power map of our counties as it relates to what's happening in the federal government. And so that we could then have a sense of where could we act strategically after having 100 meetings. So we heard a lot of different things. Some of the things we heard was that people were just not really aware. They were aware of what was happening federally, but they couldn't process how it was going to directly affect their job because they were so busy getting through the day-to-day, their budgets, their hiring, their to-do lists, their planning, all that stuff. We also heard that the most common issue that we heard was not like ideological or like culture war. It was money. Do I have enough money to run the program in my city that I'm trying to run, or my county, or coming in for the business I'm trying to run? It was funding, it was resources. And people just wanting to get what they need so they can operate. We had a lot of surprises, especially from some of our sheriffs, where we learned that all 4 sheriffs in our counties were not aligned with the 287G program, which is the memorandum of agreement that sheriffs can enter into with ICE, things like that. What was most interesting is what we did not hear. And what we didn't hear was from people was about this administration's largest, most consequential bill that it had passed in the last year, which was what is known as the One Big Beautiful Bill. We don't call it that here. We call it HR1, which is like the official name for it. So I'm going to call it HR1 through the rest of tonight's presentation. And so we realized that there was not a lot of awareness about how that bill was going to affect people's jobs, their institutions, their work, their programs. So we started to do our own research on it. Now, it's a 900-page bill. And when it was getting passed, it got passed on July 4th of 2025. We heard the talking points, but we hadn't been able to dive in deep. So we did some of our own research. And the big thing that we learned was that the bill is going to, over the course of 2 to 3 years, basically become a tidal wave of budget impacts to our local county governments. It cuts SNAP funding, the share that local counties need to administer food stamps. It cuts that match in half, which is going to require either the state to backfill that money or local counties find money from other parts of their budget to cover that administration. It cuts Medicaid, and not everybody realizes that Medicaid provides a lot of funding for different programs that people rely on, like behavioral health, immunizations, some county-run nursing homes, infant visits, things like that. It also cuts the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act, which is going to lead to about 15 million people losing their health insurance coverage. And when those people lose health insurance coverage, the ripple effects are going to go into counties. And the people who are losing health insurance are going to need services that are provided by the counties. And we started adding all of this up, and we started actually doing the math. And we realized that all of our counties were in for hundreds of thousands of dollars of budget gaps and increased demand on their services. So we decided that we were going to focus on HR 1. And I just want to share some slides with you about that. Can you see this?
Yes.
So there's the local impacts that most county managers don't know are coming. But there's also like the larger context of the bill. And in the bill, there's a contradiction. The contradiction is that this administration ran a national presidential campaign promising to people across the country that they were going to get economic populism, that this administration was going to bring lower prices, revive manufacturing, and lift people out of economic despair. But what they're getting is economic pain through the shredding of these social safety nets, the shredding of Medicaid, the shredding of ACA, reducing the food stamp funding. So we realize our job is to use this contradiction that is HR 1 and turn the narrative so that we can expose the economic pain in a real way, not an abstract policy way, in a real way of how people are going to experience it at the county level, and invite our county boards as a pillar of support to defect from this administration's agenda, because it is directly impacting the county board's budget. They're going to get blamed for the fact that their programs are shrinking, the wait times are increasing, the administration is slowing, and the local government wants to shift the blame because they're not the ones responsible. The ones responsible are the people who signed this bill, which in our area is Derek Van Orden and to our south, and then Tom Tiffany to the north. So we have an opportunity, a strategic opportunity to exploit this contradiction and start driving a wedge with our one pillar of support that happens to be in our backyard. So part of this is that HR 1 is the reason why social safety nets are being shredded is so that they can make room to provide all this upward transfer of wealth to the 1% in our country. They made permanent the 2017 tax cuts, which gives about an average tax benefit of $66,000 to the top 1%, while the actual families that work are only getting a $325 tax cut. They're cutting $990 billion from Medicaid and CHIP, $300 billion from SNAP. And all of those costs are going to be passed on to states and counties and blowing these holes into budgets. The very interesting thing about this is when you look at the polling around HR 1, 2/3 of Americans say they know little or nothing about it. So this is another strategic opportunity where we can make this a problem, because right now it's in the shadows. People don't even know what's in the bill, much less that it's going to actually drop on their specific county. But also what's interesting is that the people who do have knowledge about HR 1, about 2/3 of them think it's a bad bill. And then as people learn about it, polling shows us that the opposition rises sharply. So that the more we can bring this issue out into light in a concrete way, not just writing letters to the editor, but like in a concrete way where we're making this a political crisis in a county, it's going to drive defections amongst the people who are just residents in the county as well. So what we're doing is we're using county boards as sort of the arena where we can stage defections and create a political crisis for this regime right in our backyard. Our goal of our campaign is to pull the county boards out of alignment with this agenda by exposing the harms of HR 1 to the local services and programs, driving a public defection, and fracturing the regime's political coalition at a very, very local level in rural areas where this administration relies on support. So our first move after we did our 100 meetings is we took all the research that we did and we put them into formal letters. And we put it on our letterhead, and all of our teams went one county by one county by one county. And we went to the public budget hearings in November, and we delivered a letter to each county board member and all the county staff who were there. And then we read a testimony aloud at the podium. And we considered this to be kind of sounding the alarm that this is coming. We have the evidence that your SNAP funding is going to get cut, that the Medicaid reimbursed services are going to get shrunk, that the spillover from losing ACA is going to be washing up onto the county boards. And so we made our case in November, and then we kind of let the holidays happen because everybody kind of got into the holidays. And then now with the new year, we're going back into our counties, and we are doing community meetings this month and next month. So we sounded our alarm about how HR 1 is going to hit our counties. Now we're going and we're holding listening sessions, we're holding community meetings, we're inviting people who actually need these services to survive, people who rely on food stamps, people whose parents are in the county-run nursing home, people who need the county behavioral health services, to come and share what do these services mean to you, and what would it mean if they were lost, and what is actually coming and threatening us. So these are opportunities for people we're not talking at people, we're letting people share their stories about what the services mean. And then we're inviting them after that to come to a county action. And we haven't mapped out what our county actions are, but the idea is we're going to engage more people at our community meetings, and then bring them into some kind of action with our county boards, which could be where we go and we actually ask our county boards to sign on to a letter to our members of Congress, asking our member of Congress to fix this problem. It could be that the county board passes a resolution saying that HR 1 needs to be repealed because it's going to bring a fiscal crisis to the county government. We could have a town hall meeting where the county board members get together with the member of Congress, not necessarily assuming the member of Congress would actually come, but it would put pressure on the member of Congress. Or there could be a press conference that, like, maybe the county board chair, if they're aligned with us, could talk to the press about this issue. And we're also open to other ideas. I'm curious if you have any ideas, because we are in the strategy phase of this right now. But the point is that we're making a problem of this issue right in the backyards, in the districts of the member of Congress who voted for it. And that's all I have for slides. And I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to just ask for what your reactions are to this. And if there's any questions, this is all like an experiment that we're doing right now. And we're at a process where we're just kind of piloting this in 4 counties. And I'm really curious, as I talk to people outside of our counties, if there's interest in doing something like this in other counties. So with that, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, as you were talking earlier, I was wondering, like, okay, if the county boards are on board with this, what would they do? And so then you went through that with the four things there, plus the other ideas. But one of the big things is like there's so much disinformation out there that I mean, how does one counter that when you're out in these meetings talking to people?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why the research up front really helps, and having it all laid out in a letter. But I do think, Helen, like, we don't expect to be able to counter all the disinformation. Like, there's going to be just some people who are not going to believe this, or they're not going to want to engage with us, and that's fine. We're interested in the people who can see the stakes of what's about to happen. They know, because of the reality of their lived experience, about like why SNAP is an important program, or why the behavioral health services is an important program. That's why I think the listening sessions are a big part of this, is just bringing people together who are directly impacted, rather than trying to like persuade people that this is important. Because if you go to people who are directly impacted, it's already very important to them. So I agree, disinformation is like, it's a major issue in our society right now. But we're kind of we're not trying to solve that through this.
I think it's very hopeful, and I'm grateful that there's such a clear plan. And maybe, Helen, what we can just say to people that bring up things that we know aren't true, just say, that's so interesting that you think that. It's just interesting. We don't have to condemn them, but yeah, but this makes me feel hopeful and grateful.
What is it that makes you feel hopeful and grateful, Kathleen?
That you've done all this work that shows what we need to do, and we come out with real clear ideas. And we are working with the counties and the people.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
Great.
Bill, how did you get GROWW going? Because I mean, if we're to do this in other parts of the state, how is it that, obviously there's a lot of energy and people volunteering their time and so on for this. How do you get started with doing this other places?
Well, that's why I'm really interested in talking to people outside of our counties, because I am curious what you would need. We're thinking about what it would look like to maybe develop like a toolkit with some of the resources, like what you would need to write a letter, or how is it that you could hold a listening session on this issue. We're looking at possibly holding a few trainings in different parts of the state. So if you want to do this, we could like teach you not only about the campaign itself, but some of the basics of community organizing as well. Yeah, like also like maybe just like if you need coaching and support from an organizer while you were to do this, um, could we provide that? So we're kind of scoping out, is there interest? Is this something that we'd want to invest in as an organization? I think definitely what would be needed is you need to have a team of like 4 to 5 people who are like committed. Like we want to like take like 3 or 4 months and just like organize this. You know, obviously want to build out more than just 4 or 5 people down the road, but like I think all you need is 4 or 5 people just to get something like this started. But you would want that level of commitment and that structure in place.
In how many counties would you suggest? I mean, I'm in Dane County, but like I would think like there's Greene and Rock counties and some other Jefferson. Like how do you like how did you pick which counties to do to kind of be in your coalition there?
So we have a 7 county area that our organization organizes in just as an organization, and so that's how we picked where we're doing it now. But it seems to like we're finding that it's a model that other people could do. It's starting to gain some traction here, and so we're just like kind of putting out the radar to see if others want to try it out. Yeah, Sarah, please.
I couldn't get on for the first 20 minutes of it. They never sent me it, didn't send me a link. But anyway, did you tell us the information about the HR1 that would apply to our counties? I mean, is it going to apply to all the counties the same, or would we have to redo our information for our particular counties?
Yeah, it's a great question. Every county is going to be different, so every county has to do its own research, but there is some themes that are going to be the same for every county, like how the SNAP administrative match, that's going to be the same for every single county. Now, how your county administers SNAP might be different, but that information is available. And I think that would be part of the toolkit, is helping people walk through that research. It took us a long time because we were learning as we were going, but I think it could go quicker for people, like, because we can say, where to look, basically. And actually,
Okay.
some of this is vastly, this type of research is drastically supported by ChatGPT. Like it can find like all these crazy sources from your county website about different budget items and arrange it in a way that like really helps you do the math and figure out what the budgets are. You have to do a little bit of proofreading, but it's the research capabilities of ChatGPT really help this.
And did you take the same people who went to the different counties, but they maybe didn't live in that county, or were they only constituents of the county who went and talked and showed?
They were all constituents.
Okay. So you need a team for each county, basically.
Yeah. And you want the team to be residents of the county, because your county board is not going to pay attention to you unless you are constituents who have voting power. I'll also just share with you, I'm going to drop a link into the chat if you want to see an example of one of these letters that we sent. This is the Dunn County letter that I just dropped in. So feel free to take a look at that if you want.
I can also drop in the chat just on the research end. I just learned that UW-Madison has some projects doing some of this research as well. And I've not even like looked at this. I just pulled it out of an email that's on my to-do list. But I know they're working on this and plan on updating it. So I dropped that in the chat too.
Wow, I haven't seen this. Thank you so much.
And I'm happy to connect you to the people involved too, if that's helpful.
Very helpful. Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, other reactions, other thoughts, also skepticism. Like, do you think there's gaps in this plan? Like, I'd love to hear that kind of thing too. Yeah, Connor.
So we're coalescing around the shared goal of opposing and maybe and hopefully rescinding HR1. That's the um, and given that there's significant numbers of people in each of our home communities that will be significantly adversely affected by HR1, we have a large natural constituency um, that have a vested interest in this goal. So I think I think there's I think it's a very good goal. I think it's a very good issue that you've caught, and I think it would resonate, Bill, across the state. How the mechanics of how HR1 would get repealed, we perhaps don't need to go that far down the path, but I think it's a compelling case that you've set out, and it helps to, when you did the check-in initially here, the way people are feeling, angry, despondent, unsettled, but we, as a wider community, we don't have a specific thing that we're all coalescing on together to try to move. Part of what's deeply unsettling the current spirit of the age is how fractured everything is. I like that you're focused in on this one bill, HR1, and some of those provisions don't actually come into being until after the midterms, but raising people's awareness about that now could be potentially very beneficial. So I just want to say I like what you've laid out, and I like how it would have broad appeal across across all of our communities.
Great, thank you, Connor. Yeah, I agree. You used the word issue cut. It's like I think like I think we get overwhelmed trying to organize around authoritarianism, which is this giant, overwhelming, chronic, huge problem. So as organizers, and there's so many other problems like that. Housing is that kind of way. Climate change is that way. But you have to slice something out of the problem, a smaller issue that you can actually have leverage with and offer to people as something concrete and actionable. Because that kind of focus, I think, is what people are craving right now. So I appreciate that. I also want to just say, like, so I'm 90 miles away from Minneapolis. Operation Metro Surge is currently spilling out into our county. So a lot of the teams that have been doing this are currently pivoting into rapid response mode, and we're doing patrols and dispatch and things like that as ICE is now showing up into our counties. And so I think I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that what's happening with the building of a paramilitary that's politicized and that's operating with impunity, not only the immigrant community, but as we saw with Renee Good, to white people as well, that is from the same playbook of HR1. HR1 quadrupled the budget of ICE. It made it a more well-funded operation than many militaries in the world. It gave enough money to hire 10,000 more agents. So this thing that we're talking about, HR1, it's not just a policy, it's a governing strategy. Upward transfer of wealth, loud disruptive culture war on one hand, on the other hand, quiet methodical class war, stripping away social safety nets for regular people, while the 1/10 of 1% gets richer and richer and richer and more and more and more powerful. So this is a governing strategy is what I want to say. And we have to chip away at it little by little. Nancy.
Bill, I have two questions. One, I'm curious how you invited people to gather the stories of impact from, residents. If you found any particular technique that we have I'm in the Fox Valley region, and we are gathering stories, impact stories, not necessarily just from HR1, but from any of the policy changes that we're trying to amplify. But I'm wondering, if you found a particularly effective outreach strategy for gathering those people together who you suspected or were quite sure would be impacted.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think two things. One is it's the benefit of having an organization that's been getting built over the last 5 years is that we have a base of people who we've already talked to on other issues and have come into our organization through those on-ramps. So like we had a press action in October around the ACA and Medicaid, and we were able to get 4 speakers in just 24 hours.
Yeah.
With this, I think the other thing I would say is that's the importance of the community meeting as well, and really targeting people who have had who have experience with these programs and have a stake in the fact that they're going to be shrunk or cut. We haven't done our first community meeting starts in I think 2 weeks, so we're still testing that. We're going to learn a lot, but that's part of the design of that is hear those stories in the listening session, connect with those people, and then invite them to bring them into a county board meeting or whatever, some kind of public action.
Thank you. My other question was, so in the Fox Valley region, in Outagamie County and currently in Winnebago County, we have more purple counties, and we have some community, like the more urban communities are blue, and the more surrounding rural areas tend to be red, but they're really purple. They have small margins and we have some friendly and responsible county board members, and the county staff members are care about their mission to serve the people, and we have county executives that are probably aligned. So what would it be do you think it would be a different strategy in a more purple area instead of a pretty clearly conservative area?
Yeah, it could be. And that's why I think if we're going to like export this model to other counties, I would highly recommend, we did 100 research meetings, but that was like kind of because we didn't even know at all what we could potentially organize on. I would say if anybody is going to do this in their county, they start with like 3 to 5 research meetings. And you talk to your county board administrator, your county administrator, the staff person, county board chair. I think having a conversation with your Health and Human Services committee chair, your Health and Human Services directors at the staff level, and then I think like those 4, having those research meetings so you can get an assessment of that part of your power map, I think would be really helpful. And I mean, I'm a huge proponent of doing those types of meetings because you just get really clear on what is your chessboard, because you're going to start making moves. And if you don't know what the other pieces are on your board, you're going to have some kind of blunder,
Yeah.
So those meetings really help with that kind of clarity.
Thank you.
You're on mute, Helen.
I have a question. A lot of the people who would be telling their stories are people who are kind of in vulnerable situations. and maybe have young children or someone with a disability they're supporting or whatever things. How do you are the meetings held online so that people can actually participate, or because it might be hard for a lot of these people to come out and to a person, in-person meetings?
Yeah, we haven't done online, but I mean, that's a good point. Um, that's definitely something that could be experimented with. Yeah, we've only done in-person listening sessions.
But you didn't find
Um,
that to be an issue? People were able to make it?
I have not, in my experience as an organizer. Yeah, I haven't, but I recognize what you're saying. Like, there's some people who can't get to those. So you're right. I think you do lose some, but mostly I mean, we've had good engagement at those.
Mhm.
How did you even invite people to the first listening? Are they in your database? Or how
Yeah,
did
we
you?
we invite people. Yeah, we do relational invitations. Like, that's incredibly important. Like, you cannot turn people out to these things just by an email alone. You have to engage your relational networks and then ask that network to engage their relational networks. Because it's like when someone gets an invitation from somebody they know, they're 10 times more likely to come. So we do relational network invitations, but then we also do just your old fashioned flyers on a bulletin board, um, social media. We're sharing the invitations with food pantries and things like that. We're also putting the flyers. We're inviting also the county board. The county staff who are like running the HHS type programs, and they can share with their constituents. Yeah, the invitations are a big part of it. And I would say, like, if you're doing something like a listening session, about half of your effort should be organizing the event itself, but the other half should be doing the invitations, because the listening sessions don't mean much unless you've got the people in there.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask about the age of your county board members. Back some years ago, quite a few years ago, I was on the county board when I was, a college student. I mean,
Oh,
not,
cool.
and now I'm back in where I grew up, which is Outagamie County. Back then, dairy farm actually, so it wouldn't be. Um, I won't go into all those lines, but um, I um, I think the younger side, or those who were very active when they were young, and they are very uh, interested in or very worried about what's going on more universally in the world, but this will feel that they can really do something, that it's hard to change, you know, what's happening throughout the world. But to know that you can really get people in, be part of the getting together in the neighborhood, especially among the county board members, but also the others that you mentioned. Um, and we shouldn't ignore them because it is of so much concern. My son now is, very, I mean, he's watching the news better than any of us. But we talk about what can we do, and working on that local level. I mean, that your title and everything, that the way you've presented this as being, we've got to get the kind of resources for the coming year and so forth. And anyway, I just suggest that if there are people of that perspective, doesn't have to be age, but but that they I just think more than any time other than before this, their people they want to do something. They're having a hard time figuring out what they can do that would be helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because I think another piece of this is that we don't win in this political moment unless we're building big tents. And that means a different mindset where we're not doing politics where it's one team versus another, or it's you voted for this person, I voted for this person. It is politics where we're aligned on each other's self-interest and what we concretely need to live and survive day to day. And we organize around that. And then that gives us a vehicle to say, I don't care who you voted for or whether you voted at all. I don't care if you're young, you're old, you're black, you're white, you're brown. We're going to all be hit by this. And so let's all get together and figure something out. And I think that process is how we repair politics in this country. Because imagine if you had that type of work, county by county by county, all across the country, and people getting into these kinds of fights where really we're fighting with the 1%, but we're doing it within our county. And so it's kind of the super rich versus the rest of us, but within our county. And the thing about that kind of politics is that the door is open to anybody. Do you work for a living? Well, then you're part of our team. Do you not own a mansion and a yacht? Then you're part of our team. That's kind of the way I look at it. And I think when you are focused on this local type of issue where it's about people's direct human needs, you have that opportunity to build those kinds of difference bridging type of relationships. And that's also how you get more power. It's not just morally good. That's how we get more power. And that's how we win. Yeah, Matt, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to respect everyone's time. I know we're closing in on 7:30. Bill, if you don't mind sharing any contact information that you want to share with the group in case anybody has further questions, you can put that in the chat, or I'm sure you can find him by going to the information that GROWW has available. My name is Matt. I'm the director of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, one of the sponsors of these events, and we do them every second Tuesday of the month at this time. So keep connected to us and we'll make sure that you know what the next one is. But I can't thank you all enough for giving your time. And to close this, I want to pass it over to Connor Williams to offer a closing blessing and prayer.
Great Creator, Lord, holy presence, giver of all life, we humbly bow before you. And we pray, Lord, that you would hear the cries of those who are suffering and who will suffer through the implementation of this HR 1 and the other policies that are being propagated that are causing oppression and division in our towns, in our villages, in our cities, in our rural communities. Lord, raise up among us men and women who seek to do justice, to walk in your ways, to work for the common good, and frustrate, Lord, and bring low those who seek only to enrich themselves, who seek to oppress others, who seek to abuse the alien among us. Fashion us, Lord, into the people that you have in mind, where we care for you, we care for each other, we care for your creation, All of these things we pray in your powerful name. Amen.
Thank you, Connor. Special thanks to Bill for being with us this evening. One of the more practical and meaningful approaches I've heard in a long time. So we just really thank you for your time, Bill. And again, just thank you all for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you real soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill. It was awesome.
Thank you.